Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a delightful lunch. On behalf of Faculty of Health Sciences, Symbiosis International University, I, Richa Sharma,
And I, Khalida Pereira,
from Symbiosis Institute of Health Sciences, welcome each and every one of you back to SYMHEALTH 2022, a national conference on transforming healthcare, symbiosing with allied and healthcare professionals.
it has been a momentous day. In the past 2 days, we have discussed, shared, and learned about the evidences and the responses needed to achieve better health for all. Together with the panelists and the presenters, all of you have contributed to making these discussions so rich and to making this event such a success. I sincerely hope it was as energizing and inspiring for you as it was for me, and that we can build on the spirit and the lessons shared here in our day-to-day life as we move forward with the improving health for all. We envision a culture that is open, transparent, supportive, and committed to learning, where doctors, nurses, and all health workers treat each other and their patients competently and with respect, where the patient's interest is always paramount, and where patients and families are fully engaged in their care. We envision a culture that is centered on teamwork and is grounded in mission and purpose. The culture we envision with this conference aspires to, strives for, and achieves unprecedented levels of safety, effectiveness, and satisfaction in healthcare.
I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Srikant Srinivasan, Head of Services, Wipro GE Healthcare. Sir has dedicated 22 years of his career in GE Healthcare and is currently leading the services function of GE Healthcare South Asia. Mr. Srikant has completed his mechanical engineering from Nagpur University and is also the co-chair at NAT Health South India region. I now request Mr. Srikant to come up on the dais and share his thoughts.
Good afternoon to all the participants, attendees, organizers of this conference, healthcare and healthcare industry professionals, teachers, faculty, staff, students, and civil society representatives. I thank you for being present and giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts and words to this respected audience today. While noting that the theme of the conference, Transforming Healthcare, we're obviously symbiosing and bringing together allied and healthcare professionals, it is indeed pleasing for me to note the wide variety of the stakeholder participations and topics deliberated and discussed over the last 1.5 days. I'm sure all the stakeholders and participants, including students, positively benefited and are taking forward a few concrete actions to continue and transform healthcare in our part of the world. I'm also sure that we agree, especially those in my age group, I see a few of them here, in my age group and maybe senior, that definitely healthcare has transformed over the last 50 years in this country, right? Life expectancy when in the 70s used to be about 50 years and now it is about 70 years plus, right? Which basically means it has increased by 40%. Infant mortality rates has come down. It used to be, for those of you youngsters who may take this for granted, it used to be about 13% infant mortality rate, which basically means about 13% of children or infants used to die during childbirth, right? Today, it is about 3%. It's still a big number, and it is coming down every year, year on year, by about 5%, but it's still a big, big achievement over the last 5 decades, right? Heart disease and heart attacks, which used to be fatal about 5 decades back, today is very, 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 very manageable, right? And is not dreaded at all. It's estimated today that almost 60,000 coronary bypasses are performed every year compared to nil about 5 decades back, right? Multi-generational technology advances are available today at the disposal of our healthcare professionals, right? Be it diagnostic text, both in vivo and in vitro, be it other diagnostic capabilities like MRIs, CTs, catheterization labs, even robotic surgeries, radiotherapy in cancer, new molecules developed in pharmacy, and so on and so forth, in pharma space, so on and so forth. This has been coupled, obviously, with the increase in the availability of qualified healthcare professionals, who are one of the most competent and respected professionals, highly sought over across the world. And all, of course, the biggest credit of all this goes to our governments, both the state and the central governments, who have driven the accessibility and the affordability agenda, right? But last, but equally important, the allied professionals, which is a big part of what we have been talking about in this ecosystem, who have innovated, served, and delivered in this transformational journey, right? However, over the last 2 years, as all of us are extremely well aware, COVID-19, the pandemic, has definitely been a wake-up call, not just for us as citizens, but also governments. It's been a wake-up call which showed up gaps in healthcare accessibility, in affordability, in infrastructure across the world, including India, right? Obviously, in some parts of the world, the issue was more acute than others, and our country again responded relatively better and recovered relatively much faster than others, considering our geography and population. It is also now made sure that COVID-19 has brought the healthcare agenda at the center across our national policy and focus, right? So for that, I truly believe that we are in the midst of the next transformation, what I call the healthcare transformation 2.0 decade. It's not 1 year, it is not a season, it is not a couple of years. It's going to be a full decade, which is going to be in front of us, which is already in front of us, where there is going to be a huge disruption and transformation in healthcare in the next 10 plus years. And we are fortunate as stakeholders in this ecosystem. We've been here true and center during this time, right? So obviously, the potential is huge, right? But if the potential is huge, based on the deliberations and discussions we've had over the last couple of days, how do we ride this wave? How do we make sure saying that we take advantage, right? The potential is there, the agenda is in the center, right? The governments are making sure that they are focusing on this area. 73% increase in budgetary allocation last year, slightly much lower this year, but last year it was big. Government is very, very clear and serious about really taking accessibility and affordability to the corners of the country. I've been party to some of these discussions at the highest levels of the government, and I can rest assure you saying that the government is extremely serious for healthcare to reach and benefit every citizen in this country. So if that is the case, right, what do we need to do? What do we need to do as healthcare professionals, as allied professionals in the healthcare industry, as students, budding entrepreneurs who are coming up? What do we need to do, right? One of it obviously is to take advantage, right? But the other is to make sure saying that we don't just ride the wave. Okay, we can always ride the wave. Someone is giving us some direction, we ride the wave and take it forward. But the key here is to set the direction and the intensity of that wave. That is within us. So what can we do? Would you take on to the next slide, please? So what do we do, right? And again, the answer is extremely clear. I was thinking, answer is extremely clear. It is again symbiosing between the allied and the healthcare professional stakeholder community. The entire community has to come together as an ecosystem, right? It cannot be done just by healthcare professionals. It cannot be done by allied industry. It cannot be done by the government. It cannot be done by the private sector. It needs to be a collective ecosystem which is able to do that. Next slide. So it's all, like I said, about collaboration, and it's all about creating an ecosystem, right? If we are very clear about making a difference in the next decade, like I said, the decade which is upon us, which is going to be healthcare transformation 2.0, right? What do we need to do? According to me, okay, very clearly the focus has to be not selective healthcare. The focus has to transform towards not just metros or tier 2, tier 3 cities. The focus has to go much beyond to the remotest parts of this country where even today, healthcare is not accessible, even though we have done a lot in terms of technology, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of digital capability and stuff like that. We still have a long way to go, right? And for that, very clearly, right, the focus has to be accessibility. The first focus for all of us together as a country and as an ecosystem has to be accessibility, right? And accessibility means healthcare for all. The second one, obviously, is if we continue to do this the way we have done over the last 50 years, the progress will definitely be there. There is no doubt about it. But the progress is going to be incremental or is going to be in a normal way, which we have seen over the last so many years. But the capability for us to disrupt, right, this capability or this transformation is upon us with technology. Technology obviously has to be in the center of all our focus around care, right? So I have given two specific words here. I have said technology-enabled care, right? So the focus does not need to be the physical geography or the physical place. Technology has enabled us to remove the place constraint. It can be fully removed. The focus has to be on people. The focus has to be on patient. The focus has to be on wholesome health. How do we do that? How does technology take care? Digital technology in India is absolutely top of the class. We are already going into the 5G space, right? And the kind of technology advancement in the services in the IT space, we are all very clear that we are world leaders in that space. So I don't see an issue there. So the ability for us to leverage both innovation in this space and the capability of the digital transformation which is happening in this country will ensure that the ability for us to focus on that care through technology is easily enabled. Okay, we do not need to physically, frankly, we do not need to physically be in the last miles of this country, right? As long as we have a technology-enabled infrastructure and delivery mechanism, be it already we are seeing very clearly telehealth, where consultations happen remotely, doctor sits about 500 kilometers away, there is only a technician or a nurse or a Anganwadi worker or a Aya who is able to triage this patient, and the decisions are taken on the spot, right? So technology enables that. Technology is already there in the radiology space, where even though machines are there, as we are aware, a big area is we do not have enough skilled manpower, be it radiologists, doctors, nurses, technicians in these places. Does not need to be there. As long as we have a technician who can take the basic tests, can be transferred digitally back into a remote place in tier 3, tier 2 or tier 1 cities, the ability for us to diagnose and give back the results is today a reality, right? Very clearly. Third one, which is fastly evolving, which some of you may know, right? In the time of COVID, right? There is huge progress in the ability for us to remotely manage intensive care units, right? The kind of issues we had, even in the remotest place in the villages, right, ensured that we needed to innovate on this area. So we have enough and more proof of concepts, pilots which have been done, which are able to take care of the majority of the intensive care needed to be taken at a remote place, and then the data gets transferred with experts being again about 500 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers away. And the ability for them to intervene in majority of the cases and save lives is already there. So what I'm trying to say is, this is one area which I want you as students, which I want you as budding entrepreneurs, which I want you as healthcare professionals, which I want you as allied industry professionals to focus on. It cannot be, we cannot transform healthcare in this decade by doing what we have done over the last 5 decades. It has to be technology enabled, right? The third one, like I said already, digital first healthcare delivery model. It has to be digital. And digital for so many people means different things. This is something which is evolving. For a company like us, which is in diagnosis primarily, digital basically means usage of machine learning, usage of artificial intelligence to provide better diagnostic much faster, right, and more accurately. It also means the ability for us to be able to maintain equipment which are thousands of kilometers away by connecting those equipments and having a 24/7 monitoring mechanism to ensure these equipments never fail and work to their competency or to their specifications, right? And so on and so forth. I also know there are enough and more startups in this country, some of them whom we are partnering in, who are doing extremely innovative stuff in terms of healthcare delivery, right? So the ability for us, where there is huge amount of focus on technology as well as digital minds, this needs to be forefront. So I ask and urge every one of you to take advantage of this. If you're not aware, get yourself aware, get yourself immersed. The potential as well as the capability to transform through this is tremendous and enormous, right? So this is something which I want every one of you over the next few years to focus on. The next one, very, very clearly, is again positive government reforms, right, in this space, right? Government has already done, like I said, 5G is already coming, right? Government has already done a lot of areas in terms of connectivity, but there is still some more to be done. So the ability for us, again, as professionals, as allied industry who have got the capability, the knowledge, the ability for us to think forward are already in collaboration working with the government to make sure saying that this becomes a reality. One of the big things, and again, some of you may be aware, some of you may be not, one of the big things which is happening again in this transformation is what is called NHDM, National Health Digital Mission. National Health Digital Mission is a fantastic digital ecosystem of healthcare delivery and healthcare management in a truly disruptive way. It is just started up. For some of you who are already savvy, okay, there have been medical IDs, universal national medical IDs on the line of Aadhaar, which is available, right? It is able to be transported or used across different healthcare systems. It is extremely good in terms of privacy, the ability for you to have history as well as the capability of systems which are working on top of this layer to be able to understand your healthcare history, your healthcare uniqueness, right? And the ability for it to aid doctors in the ability to diagnose and tell what is needed and to even predict your health in the future is going to be a fast reality in the next 10 plus years. Keep this in mind. So I again urge you to support our government in this big, big endeavor which is happening, which is called NHDM, National Health Digital Mission. And I assure you, saying that if we embrace it as citizens, healthcare will be transformed. Healthcare, as you see today, in terms of both delivery, management, as well as prevention, is going to be a reality. So please focus on this extremely carefully. This is extremely important for all of us, right? The next one is, again, we have started seeing this in good pockets. We are seeing this in our industry of diagnostics, right, where governments are not able to do everything efficiently. Government is not able to do everything affordably, right? So what they have very clearly done is ask entrepreneurs, private sector partners, to come into what we call a PPP model, right? A PPP model basically means public-private partnership model, which basically tells the government gives the infrastructure, the government gives the market, which is basically the healthcare, I would say, patient market, and the delivery is basically done by the private sector, the private entrepreneurs, right? And this has been tremendously successful, both sides, right? What does the government gets? The government, first, what does the patient or the end patient gets? It gets, he or she gets either free healthcare or extremely low pricing in terms of healthcare. So the affordability issue is being addressed very, very well. We know of, I would say, projects in the interior parts of Assam, in the interior parts of Arunachal Pradesh, in the interior parts of Kashmir, in the interior parts of Himachal Pradesh, in the interior parts of Bihar, Jharkhand, where this is working extremely well, and where patients needed to travel 300, 400 kilometers for a diagnostic test are able to get it done the same day, no waiting period, the same day, free or extremely affordably. And this is again done in a very, very effective public-private partnership, right, which is again technology enabled. Again, because these are remote places, healthcare professionals are not available, so the ability for us to acquire the test, the images, is done at the site of the test, and the diagnostic is done somewhere 500,000 kilometers away. And it is sent back again in real time, not maybe real time, in near real time, maybe a couple of hours later, the tests are all available back to the patient, right? So very, very well done, efficient way. What does the private entrepreneur get? Obviously, the private entrepreneur gets lower margins, but having said that, he gets two things. One, he gets the ability for him to succeed in an extremely innovative manner. The second thing, the volumes are huge. So the ability for the private entrepreneur to also make it commercially is still there. And third one, to a large sector of these private entrepreneurs, some of whom I know well, it is also a sense of pride that they are able to make a big dent in terms of making this country a healthier India, right? A lot of these private entrepreneurs are doing it to make sure, saying that all of our citizens see a better tomorrow, right? So what I am saying here is, we have done this, right? But we have to evolve in this in the next step. We have to take it forward to a much better and much smarter, okay, PPP model. What is a much better and a much smarter PPP model? I don't know, right? But is there a way to get to that? Definitely there is a way to get to that. I can assure you, across the world, governments cannot and will not be able to address the healthcare delivery issue by themselves. It has to be in collaboration with the private sector. It has to be in collaboration with the healthcare professionals. It has to be in collaboration with the allied industry. And here, again, is an opportunity for us to innovate into smarter PPP models. That is something, again, food for thought for all of you, right? Last but not the least, right? Not last but not the least. The second last one is basically innovations, right? Innovations where we have to enable both access, right? We have to enable and encourage incubators. We have to make sure, saying that most of you who are youngsters in this audience, the ability for you to get opportunities to work with the experienced people who are in this industry for some time, enable, incubate your ideas and take it forward is extremely, extremely, extremely important. So the ability for us to enable companies like us who are at the forefront of technology has to share some of these innovations with this ecosystem. And it will happen. It will happen in a partnership way. GE is already doing it in a small way in terms of startup, which we call Edison, which I'll talk to you a little later. And we see very clearly that this is the way to go. Because GE cannot do it alone, other companies cannot do it alone, government cannot do it alone. It has to be almost crowdsourced, right? And that's the key. Last but not the least, upskilling. Upskilling is something which is underrated. It is also a word which is being used over the last couple of years because of COVID, right? Where we saw huge amount of shortages in terms of capable manpower to give care to the patients, right? But this is much broader. This upskilling issue, even though, like I said, technology can take away some of the drawbacks of skilled manpower, skilled workforce not being there, it cannot take on everything. So it is extremely important for us together as an ecosystem to work on the upskilling across different sectors, not just doctors. Government is already doing a lot of stuff in terms of medical colleges to be there in every district in this country, right? There are more than 735 districts in this country, and we are still not there. We are just about 50% in this country in terms of medical colleges in every district. So we have to go a long way. Government is doing that. Same thing about nursing. Government is focusing on nursing. But this ecosystem needs much, 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 much beyond that, right? Be it technicians, be it paramedics, be it phlebotomists, be it assistants to nurses, be it biotechnology, biomedical engineers, so on and so forth. There's a vast area which is there, which we need to address upon. And I'm happy, especially Symbiosis Healthcare, Institute of Healthcare Sciences is already doing some work. And we are trying to collaborate with them as a company there because we have the capability, we have the knowledge in some of these areas. And we very clearly feel that if we are able to partner together, educate some of you who are students in this place much better, make sure saying that you're ready for the industry will go a long way. So this is something, again, which we need to make sure that we do it well, right? Next page. So what are we doing, right? I want to take an example of what we as GE Healthcare, which I represent, are trying to do to take this healthcare innovation much faster. One of the things which we did over the last 30 years, GE Healthcare has been in India as a joint venture partner with Wipro, right, in this space for the last 30 plus years. So Wipro and GE in the healthcare space have been present in this for some time. So already, okay, in the last 30 years, Wipro and GE have invested and incubated and grown, okay, both innovation and manufacturing in a big way in India. We have more than about 2,500 engineers working on latest cutting-edge innovation in the diagnostic space. 2,500, not making products only for India, but for the world. Understanding what needs are there for the world, not just in the developed world, but in the developing world. We make products for the African continent from here. We make products for the ASEAN continent from here, right? So ASEAN countries from here, right? So we're doing quite a bit around that. We're also doing huge amount of investments and presence in terms of manufacturing, right? We already do, okay, almost about 30% of what we sell in this market, we are already manufacturing in India. And that is going to go more than 50% because we have just inaugurated a 4th manufacturing facility here. And why are we doing that? We are doing that because if you want to innovate and if you want to transform, we have to design and manufacture products made for this market, right? And the focus is this market, and the focus is, again, affordability and accessibility. The ability for us to be able to make those products at the highest levels of technology at a very affordable price is only possible when you are able to do local manufacturing. And we are expanding that very, very clearly. So I ask, again, allied industry professionals who are here to make sure saying that we focus on this area because it's big. And again, the government of India has been extremely, I would say, encouraging with the Make in Bharat initiative, Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. There are a lot of, I would say, incentives which the government is ready to give if we engage with them. So we should take advantage there. We are also deep diving in what I call, I already said we are working on technology, but we are working more deeper now in innovative technology, right? Innovative technology means for us, okay, we have a platform which is called Edison, right? Edison is a platform akin to a iOS or a Android in the mobile space. Edison is a platform in the healthcare space, right? So once you have that platform done, once you have the basic, I would say, APKs and other stuff done, the ability for new entrepreneurs to be able to take advantage of this platform and develop products, innovations, solutions for the market is much, 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 much easier. And with the kind of capability and experience which we have in this space, we expect that this will take a leapfrog, right? So that's what Edison is all about. And also Edison takes care of huge amount of capability in terms of data which is generated, okay, in the healthcare space. The ability for it to crunch data, present it in a meaningful way for entrepreneurs and innovators to take it forward is absolutely amazing, right? The third one is very clearly, we are back, I would say, to the drawing board. We are not bringing technology which is developed in the developed world for this market. We very clearly see this market is unique. The needs of this market, the needs for all of us citizens are definitely unique and different from the Western world. So we are innovating, we are focusing on the needs for this population. And we are bringing in simpler solutions, more affordable solutions for this market. So I again urge our allied industry professionals to focus on that. The other one which you're doing is today, and if you can go to see, you can just Google it. You can just see India Edison Accelerator Program, right? If you Google it and see, we are collaborating with the best of the best startups in the healthcare space, right? To bring in the latest and disruptive solutions which are needed for this industry. There are already every year, we usually take on, after a very grueling, I would say, process of almost about 250 plus companies which compete. We take on about between 5 and 10 focused companies to develop the next level of innovative and disruptive technologies, which is going to make a difference. So that's what we're doing, and that, I think, needs to happen much, much more on a much broader scale in the ecosystem, right? Last but not the least, some of the stuff which you're doing in terms of reach. This is more, I would say, we have all these solutions, but if we are not able to reach it to the end customer, end patient, because we are inefficient, we are incapable, what is the use, right? So we are innovating on delivery models to make sure, saying that it is both efficient, effective, and affordable. So in summary, go to the next. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So in summary, what I want to say is very clearly, from investments in R&D, right, to innovation, to realizing the digital India dream, which is extremely possible, extremely easy to be done. Our healthcare sector is transforming very, very fast, and disruption is around the corner. It is up to us to disrupt. If we all come together as an ecosystem and work together across all stakeholders, we will be able to do so. We, as GE Healthcare, as looking at the future of healthcare transformation with innovative technology leading the way. It is all about technology and innovation. And we very clearly say the tomorrows we imagine will be created by those who stand together, who collaborate, who strive to make an impact with each stakeholder in this room. So our mission, please remember, is going to be healthcare for all, healthcare to every citizen in this country. And I wish you the very best in this journey. And we are all in this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the session, sir. So while you talked about a lot of positive side of how we are innovating and collaborating, but then you also said that every market is unique and you cannot bring Western products into these markets. So what are some of the unique challenges that India faces while we are at the crossroads of going digital, and how are we able to address, I mean, the unique challenges that the PPP model faces and the government faces in terms of digitization?
Okay, so the first one very clearly which comes into my mind is infrastructure, especially in tier 3, tier 4 cities or towns, right? Infrastructure, especially in terms of power. Digital is extremely good, right? We are able to connect even in the remotest parts digitally. But power, unfortunately, even today, right, is not that great, right? Even if power is there, the power quality is not great, right? So the ability for you to be able to do this very, very systematically and I would say predictably is not there. So this is one very clearly. The second one, to some extent, I wouldn't say it's a big issue. To some extent, is also skill, right? Even though we said digital takes away or technology is able to take away some of these needs for skills, you still need some amount of capability and skills there. So in some areas, we still are not seeing that kind of skill. So the focus on skill needs to be there. The third one very clearly is the ecosystem around in the local environment, right? The ecosystem itself needs to develop to be able to embrace this kind of delivery models, right? So our citizens in this country are still not used to that, right? They still expect a doctor to be available. They still expect, I would say, things to be much more told, right? So there it's again is some amount of work needs to be there, but it is fast evolving. So these are a few which I don't think are going to be big disablers, but these are things which you have to overcome as a ecosystem.
And so just a sub-question to that. So do you also think that digital literacy is also somewhere hurdle, as in for tier 1 cities it might not be a problem, but for tier 2 and 3 cities, how to penetrate those cities with digital means is something that...
Correct. So definitely again, relatively yes, absolutely no, because we are very digitally savvy in terms of mobiles, right? Everyone, even if he or she is illiterate, is able to navigate mobiles well. So the ability for us to adapt to that technology, irrespective of how much we are educated, is there. So the ability for us to be able to build on that is much easier than what it was a couple of generations back. This generation, the Gen Z generation, is extremely savvy, right? So definitely, I would say that education needs to reach there and we need to keep pace. But is it going to be a big disabler? No. It is going to be an enabler. We just need to catch up and accelerate.
Thank you, sir.
I have two questions. So the first one is, we have... I'm sorry, let me just put this together. The first one is, we are a country where, I mean, obviously we are at different levels of development in different cities or, tier 2 cities, smaller towns, etc. So obviously some of the equipment and other things that is there is older in some of the places and it may not be digitally enabled. So what developments are taking place in order to make those older equipments and all that to, more fit into the digital age? That's the first one. The second one is, a company like GE Healthcare is more into the larger equipment, the larger, the devices that are used in big hospitals and things like that. But the new trend is all about wearables. Like I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor, for instance. So what innovations is GE doing in order to come towards that? Because obviously the startups are sort of catching up there very quickly.
So, okay. So let me take the first side of that, right? For the older equipments, right? It's a mixed bag, right? It's a mixed bag in terms of saying that there are a few technology or few equipments which are not able to be upgraded, and that's a fact. You need to replace those. But in some cases, we are seeing that the ability for us to retrofit, right, solutions to the existing equipment is available, right? For example, let's say in our space, X-ray machines, which are the basic, which is fully analog. The ability for us to use the same X-ray machines which have been manufactured 35 years back and transform it digitally already exists, right? So with the correct hardware, which is a retrofit, along with software and digitally connecting it, the same X-ray machine with the same technology is able to be transformed into the digital way. So I would say it is a mixed bag. I wouldn't say it is 100%, but it is possible and it is happening. Second, to your point, okay, obviously, again, technology is evolving and changing. Like you said, wearables are becoming big. Personalized healthcare is more and more what we all look for, right? And for a company like GE, we understand that, right? And GE cannot be everywhere. GE focuses on and decides on the strategy on specific stuff. And is wearables one of them? Maybe, right? But it doesn't mean saying that we'll not be in the space. It is all, like I said, today, any company cannot function on its own. It's no longer the ability for us to be able to say, I bring in end-to-end. It has to be collaboration, it has to be an ecosystem, it has to be partnership. So there will be good amount of partnership in the end-to-end, okay, healthcare monitoring, diagnosis, treatment, therapeutics, delivery space, where every of these companies will collaborate because, again, these are getting digitally enabled. Software is able to talk much easier, right, across these, and it is starting to get, I would say, digitally savvy. This is one. The second thing, again, I want to reiterate, the NHDM, the National Health Digital Mission, is extremely powerful. It is just nascent stages. If we all put together, come back and saying that we need a digital connect, a digital thread, which ensures that every segment of this ecosystem is able to be interconnected and talk to each other, right? And we work with those on those standards. It will be a reality to what you're saying, irrespective of where it is, what you're doing. For you for me as a patient, for me as a citizen, the ability for me to access any kind of treatment, any kind of diagnosis, any kind of reports, any kind of data is possible. It's within our, I would say, grasp. We just need to make sure we engage and we drive that well. Okay, thank you so much. I think in the interest of time, I take leave. I'm glad to take questions or answers off.